back to my channel. So you've probably seen me in this outfit a couple of times now because I've just done a book haul and a sort of wrap up quick fire book reviews for some books that I've read over the last couple of months, but I wanted to actually do an individual book review on one of my favourite books that I've read so far this year, and this surprisingly for me was a 5-star. I didn't think I'd like it. It was very different to what I thought it was going to be going into it. So yeah, and that book is From Green to Blue by Jonathan Cox. This was a gifted book to me. My dad actually knows the author and he reached out to me and was like, would you like to review it if you like it? And yeah, there was no obligation, nothing like that. In fact, he didn't even say, could you make a YouTube video? He just knew that I liked to review books. And I thought, my dad told me this was about his time, but this is actually a fictional book. So he's a retired policeman, and there is a statement at the front of the book that everything in this book is purely fiction and anything that matches anything is just a coincidence. And I really enjoyed this. I didn't think I'd be sitting here doing a full book review on a police fictional book. But yeah, I mean, it's not too much of a surprise because I like Line of Duty and that side of things, like the TV show. But I'm very much, I like books that are based on real careers. I like people in hospitals, ambulance workers, police force, all things like that, prisoners, people that work in prisons, all that sort of thing. So yes, like I said, this is an actual fictional book, so that was the first surprise to me. But this is about a young 19-year-old called Christopher who is recently orphaned and turns to the police force as a second sort of chance in life. It follows him sort of getting onto the force, and then it follows him sort of in, I would say probably in the span of maybe a year, I can only assume, being what they call puppy walked, and that is basically just where he has to stay with, you know, a mentor for that period of time. And his mentor was called Dawn. I thought Dawn was, went through most of the book thinking she was maybe in her late 30s, maybe even 40s, probably because she had had a relationship or like an affair with a married man. But he turned out to be older than her anyway. But yeah, I'm getting off a slight tangent, but yes, she's only like 26, I believe, and she is Chris's mentor, and they do not get on from the start. Like, she sees him as this very new, you know, not much experience in the world young chappie who probably thinks he knows too much when he really doesn't. He does all the wrong things at the start. It's really quite cringy. You think, how is he going to develop into being an actual policeman? How is he going to get through all this? This is a series. It's called the Nostrils series, and Nostrils is the somewhat affectionate name, somewhat infectious nickname that he gets given from day one. I don't recall them actually explaining, and I think there is a moment where he says, why am I called Nostrils in this book, but I don't think we ever find out. So maybe he has a big nose, I'm not sure. But yeah, that's why it's called the Nostrils series, and like I said, this is the first book in the series. So I've got my notes here, so let me tell you a little bit about what I liked from it, some of the things that went on. I'll try not to spoil it for you. So yes, the chapters in this are really quite short. They're anywhere from like 3 to 10 pages long. So this is a really great book to pick up on a whim. It's a very quick read. I read it in a week, which for me is really good at the moment. But yeah, I've just been kind of carrying this book wherever I go. So if I've got like 5 minutes before work, or if I'm waiting for an appointment, this is there for me to pick up. And this just, it all felt so real. Like, I'd love to know what inspired some of these stories, if there is sort of any potential truth in some of the characters. I know he said that isn't at the start, but I'd love to know if anything was sort of taken from a character or taken from an experience that he'd heard of happened somewhere. This book had a lot of humour to it. Had some sexual elements to it, so I'll just forewarn if, you know, that's not your thing. It's not heavy in this book, but there are some scenes of a sexual nature, so bear that in mind. I feel like Chris in this book is as clueless as maybe we are as someone that doesn't know terminology in the police force. So that was kind of good in a way, because they had to explain to you. You didn't have to go on Google and find out what these different terms meant. Kind of found out with Chris along in the book. And the main obviously theme is his relationship with Dawn, and like I said, it was very rocky at the start. She thought he was just not going to cut the mustard, and didn't think he'd be in the job for long. But as events happened and the book progressed, they started to build a friendship, and I really enjoyed reading that and seeing him sort of gain her trust. You know, he even starts to develop kind of a crush on her. Various things happen. I'm not going to say whether they get together or not. Leave that for you to find out. So this book, like I said, was written for being in the 1980s, and there are a couple of things that date the book, but I wouldn't say you read this and you felt like the whole time you were in the 80s. Like, this could have happened last couple of months. There were a few things, like the prices of things, if they mentioned it, or the police's outlook on having gay police force. That was very sort of typical of its time in the 80s. And it does make you wonder, obviously that sort of stuff did go on. And also there's a lot of like police corruption in this book. And you wonder sort of how much used to go on and how much still goes on now. Obviously Line of Duty is pretty much all about corruption in the police line, so it's interesting to think that maybe that sort of still goes on under the covers, and why they have to sort of cover things up. So yeah, like I said, Chris kind of lands himself in hot water numerous times. There was like a running pursuit, and he ends up knocking over a granny. Like, he fails to stop people. He does end up trying to arrest someone, and then Dawn has to step in and be like, we actually can't arrest him, you've not seen him do anything wrong. Like, that was very early on in his career, and you just see him develop and grow as a character. Obviously with time he learns from Dawn. He gains his own confidence. Some of the stories of things that went on in this were just, you think, how can someone make that up? Like, they were just hilarious, shocking. One example was this guy thought he was hearing like this child saying help, help, and at first they thought he was maybe, you know, not mentally there, or he had had some trauma in the past and this sort of coming up now, and they actually ended up finding a prostitute who had been upstairs, and their, you know, actions had gone wrong, and she had been tied to the bed and couldn't get out. There was something else connected to that, but I'll leave that as a little surprise for you. But it's just those things of like, it's just like you couldn't believe you were reading it. It was so funny, unusual, just gripping, made it all very fast paced. Like I said, I read it in a week. There was an incident with an Orthodox Jew who tried to like capture someone, and he had like a machine gun. Like, that just made me chuckle. The ending itself, I nearly shed a tear, and I don't get emotional too much with books. Like, it takes a lot for a book to make me really relate, well, not even relate to the characters, but like be so invested in the characters where I feel so emotional by a plot twist or by an ending. And what happened with Dawn and Chris at the end, like that last page, and it very much has ended kind of on a cliffhanger. It felt very neatly wrapped up because of what happened. So I wouldn't say it was too much of a cliffhanger, but it ends very sort of suddenly, and I was like, nearly shed a tear. I couldn't believe what I read. I finished this at about like 9:30 last night, and like I emailed Jonathan this morning and was like, this is one of the best books I've read all year. Like, it takes a lot for me to nearly shed a tear over a book, so, and I didn't think I'd be doing it over like a police fictional book. So needless to say, I really enjoyed it. The characters were just brilliant. The storyline was really good. Like I said, it's a series, so at the end you do get a taste of what the next book is like and what, you know, is to come. And I would really love to pick up the second book. I don't know if I would enjoy the second one as much as the first, because first books are always the best in a series. But it would be interesting to see how Cress progresses now that he's sort of graduated from his first year and he's no longer needing to be puppy walked. So yeah, let me know what you think this book sounds like to you, if you think it would be up your street. Like I said, it was gifted, but there was no obligation to write a review, and I just loved it so much, hence why I had to do a standalone book video. So very tempted now to go and buy the next book and see what happens next. So yeah, that's my little book review for today. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss my book videos and reviews in the future. And if book reviews aren't your thing, there'll be something else coming up very soon, I imagine, whether it be a Disney vlog or another vlog of some sort. So yeah, I hope you're doing well, and I'll see you very soon. Bye guys.